All right, 132, folks. There's a few more things I want to talk about on Unit 6, on Chapter 26, because there's just so much in this particular chapter that it's huge. One of the things the book kind of talks a little bit about is talking about the baby boom. I hear a lot of stuff about the baby boom, about jokes and memes about boomers, about old fashioned attitudes, about all sorts of stuff, and about how, well, the modern generation doesn't owe anything to the baby boomers, and also about, well, how the modern generation doesn't respect baby boomers. And here's the thing, folks, baby boomers, I mean, it's a sudden population explosion at this particular point. I mean, it's almost exponential. And so what's going to happen is they're going to build a lot of things. They're going to build a lot of hospitals. They're going to build a lot of schools. They're going to build a lot of highways. This is going to be the exodus from the cities into the suburbs. So we're going to see the springing up of suburbs because this GI Bill of rights. There's so many other programs going on, and the idea being is we want to build a middle class. We want to build a whole new group of people. So more people are going to buy. They're going to buy a lot of things. You're going to buy cars. With the birth of this whole car culture, we're going to look at an increase in the road system. And so, this is where that Federal Highway Act comes in at. This is the birth of a lot of different schools along the way. In our area here in just Hudson, Lenore area, if you look, I mean, you have the old high school downtown in Lenore itself. That comes from this era. If you go look at Gamewell Middle School, I mean, that comes from this era. A large chunk of High Brighton comes from this era. There's a lot of old schools that were built because of the baby boom itself. And there's a lot of roads, there's a lot of structures that come from the same area. And so there's a lot of things happening. I want you to think about that. Another holdover from this era is the Bracero program. And we don't talk enough about the Bracero program. I don't want to talk about that because what that is that's an introduction during World War II that invites the Mexican people and invites the people from south of the border to come to the United States, to come in and work with us, to come in and work in our fields, to work in our factories, to come in and help us harvest, because we are missing an awful lot of people and we need another group of people to come in and help harvest. And so we're going to invite them over. And we're going to be willing to have them work in the factories, to work in the fields, to come in and benefit us. But this is going to start to shift because after the war is over with, we're going to try to negate this Bracero program. We're going to start to have too many, as far as we're concerned, Hispanics coming across the border, and we're going to say, hey, well, perhaps we want to do something else. Perhaps we can change how we do this. I mentioned this is also the rebirth, not the birth of, but the rebirth of the civil rights movement. I talked a little bit about Rosa Parks and Montgomery bus boycott, about the introduction of Dr. Martin Luther King and the nonviolent civil disobedience, or his policy that comes up. And what we're looking at is also the introduction of the Civil Rights Commission, the Civil Rights Act. And the reason why the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the reason that this is happening is that we have a lot of soldiers of color. In World War II, we're still looking at segregated units. We're looking at black units. We're looking at tank units. We're looking at soldiers. We're looking at Air Corps units that are segregated. And the fact is, it turns out that some of these segregated units absolutely just, how do I phrase it nicely, kick ass. Pardon me, but that's the way it is. And they're going to come in and they're going to prove and themselves and why they're in Europe. They're Americans. And once again, once they come back, they're black Americans, they're lesser Americans. And so really, we're going to see this huge reaction is to say, listen, we bled the same darn color of blood that you did, and we fought the same war, and we stood up for the same things, and by God, we deserve the same rights. And so it's really going to be that recognition as it comes up along the way. Now, when we're talking about this whole idea of peace, when we're talking about this nonviolent civil disobedience, we're also looking at the growth of a different policy, this reaction against communism. We look at the introduction of John Foster Dulles at this point, and he's going to bring something to light. And what he's going to bring to light is the idea of massive retaliation. Folks, this is the beginning of the nuclear age. This is the beginning of the expansion of science. We picked up a lot of science from, how do I put this nicely? Well, from the Germans. We invited a lot of German scientists to join us on our side post-war that are go to prison. And strangely enough, a lot of them volunteered to go ahead and come work with us. My wife will get after me about this, but just recently she was having a discussion with her brother from Texas, and he was explaining that, well, he didn't believe that there was actually such thing as a moon landing because we didn't have the technology to go to the moon. And the problem is we did, folks. We got a lot of rocketry technology. We got a lot of engine technology. We got a lot of science technology from the Germans and from the intelligence that we received from them. And so this is the birth of NASA. This is the birth of the space race, us going to be against the communists. So this is the introduction of the National Defense Education Act. And so what really triggers all this is we're competing with Russia. And what Russia is going to do is Russia is going to successfully put the first satellite, Sputnik, into orbit. And here's the thing, folks. Sputnik is a satellite, and what it does is this. It goes beep, 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 beep. And that's it. But the problem is, in that beeping, we can hear it. It's only 15 pounds. It's not a huge satellite, folks. It doesn't take that much but 15 pounds. It actually takes a whole lot to put 15 pounds. But what it does is this looming threat. If they can put this above us, what else can they put up there? If they can put something that goes beep, why can't they put something that goes boom? And so we're going to start to compete. We're going to start to activate our own ideas. And so what's going to happen is we're going to see the birth of something that Eisenhower, on his way out the door, is going to warn us of something called the military-industrial complex. And the military-industrial complex is his way of saying, hey, listen, I'm out of here because there's just too much going on. But what I want you to know is whoever's coming in, whoever's going to be president, who's ever going to be involved, be aware that these large companies are working together. These large military supply companies are working together to run your government. They're actually behind the scenes, that they are donating money, that they are structuring things in such a way that they're going to benefit from selling us weapons. And if there's no war, then there's no need for weapons. So they're going to be creating wars. They're going to be creating problems. And so what we look at is the introduction of what becomes the idea of massive retaliation. This massive retaliation is going to be thanks to the military-industrial complex. But what we start to do is we start to race this huge arms race. Now, if you look, you'll see that I've posted the duck and cover video with this, and that's kind of an important thing to think about, because we start worrying about not just people, not just about economics, not just about civil rights, but we start to worry about this whole atomic bomb scenario. All right, I'm going to go ahead and post one more video, and that will be on chapter 27, and that'll be the end of this unit. Thank you.